Pharaohs were the kings and queens who ruled ancient Egypt. They ruled over Egypt for more than 3,000 years, commanding immense wealth, power, and most importantly, devoted worship from their people. But what if everything we know about them is wrong? From the first pharaoh of the 5th dynasty to the last king of the 20th dynasty, join us as we uncover the truth behind the pharaohs. First up is Narmer, or Menes, who supposedly united Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BC and is therefore credited with creating the first dynasty. He conquered Nubia, Syria, and Palestine and led the Egyptian army to victory at the Battle of Megiddo. He changed the religion of Egypt from polytheism to monotheism, creating a new god named Aten. He also introduced a new capital city called Akhetaten and a new style of art that emphasized realism. But what really made him famous was his strange appearance. He reigned for 66 years and is considered one of the greatest conquerors in history. He fought against the Hittites and the Libyans, and he even led an invasion into the Levant. But perhaps his greatest achievement was the construction of the Ramesseum, a massive mortuary temple that was once the size of Abu Simbel. However, as impressive as it is, historians argue that Ramses exaggerated the size of his victories and downplayed his defeats. For example, the famous Battle of Kadesh, which he claims was an overwhelming victory for Egypt, was actually a draw. He also greatly exaggerated the number of prisoners and booty taken. But this was nothing new. Leaders have been exaggerating their victories since the dawn of history. Akhenaten had a large head, big eyes, and a tiny body. Some people even say that he looked like a lizard. This has led many to believe that he wasn't even human, but an alien. While there's no evidence to support this claim, it's still pretty interesting to think about. He is also responsible for the building of many temples and monuments, including the famous Temple of Amunet Karnak. He came to power when he was only 9 years old and died at the age of 19. He is perhaps best known for his tomb, which was discovered by Howard Carter in 1922. Ever since then, rumors have swirled about a supposed curse that killed anyone who disturbed the pharaoh's eternal rest. While it's true that several members of Carter's team died soon after the discovery, there is no connection between their deaths and the curse. In fact, most of them died from natural causes. However, none of this would have been possible if it weren't for his wife, T. And so she began having affairs with the royal court, including with her own father. Eventually, she gave birth to Thutmose and raised him as her own son. When Thutmose became pharaoh, he rewarded T's loyalty by making her Great of Praises, a newly created title that placed her in charge of all royal ceremonies. Together, they would go on to build the empire of the 18th dynasty. The myth says that he was a simple shepherd who, after slaying a terrifying crocodile, was elevated to godlike status and made pharaoh. He built the largest pyramid in Giza and is one of the richest men in history. Some scholars even think he was the biblical pharaoh who enslaved the Israelites. However, all of these claims are based on a misreading of ancient texts. First off, while it's true he built the biggest pyramid, his name was actually just Khufu. It was the Greeks who labeled it the Great Pyramid. They also mistakenly attributed it to their king, Khephis. As for slavery in Egypt, it wasn't nearly as brutal as in other civilizations. Slaves could own property, buy their freedom, or even become pharaoh. In fact, many of the workers building the pyramids were probably just farmers who took a break from their regular jobs during the flood season. So, while Khufu was undoubtedly rich and powerful, the idea that he was some sort of evil overlord is just not true. However, recent studies have shown that these events never happened. She ruled for over 20 years and is considered one of the greatest pharaohs of all time. But wait a minute, she was a woman. Now, this didn't sit well with the Egyptians. You see, they believed that women were too weak and emotional to rule over men. Even today, no one can agree on whether or not Hatshepsut was actually pharaoh. Some believe that she was regent for her husband's heir, Thutmose III, while others say she was the true ruler. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that she was pharaoh, because there were plenty of female rulers before her, such as Sobonifru, who had all the typical male anatomy. Instead, Narmer probably inherited his throne from his father, and the story of him killing a crocodile was simply an allegory to explain how he brought order to a previously chaotic land. What's more, there is no evidence of any kingdom in the south called Upper Egypt. Instead, we now believe that Narmer was a chieftain who expanded his territory to the north. Next is Khufu, the 4th pharaoh of the 4th dynasty. Moving on is Hatshepsut, the 5th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Speaking of Thutmose III, he was the nephew of Hatshepsut and one of the most successful pharaohs in history. Next is Akhenaten, the 3rd pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Moving on is Tutankhamun, the 12th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Finally, we have Ramesses II, the 3rd pharaoh of the 19th dynasty. Now it's your turn. Which pharaoh surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments.